Hi, I'm Gohar Vardanyan, and this is Strings by Male Lessonettes, a series of mini video lessons. In this lesson, I'll be talking about tremolo. And tremolo in classical guitar is the technique where we use the thumb for the bass note, and A, M, and I fingers for the treble note. So when we play it, we kind of have this continuous sound on the melody or on the top note that doesn't decay because we constantly repeat it. Before we talk about different ways to practice tremolo, I'm going to discuss a little bit the mechanics that are behind it, because the mechanics of it are actually just as important as the ways to practice it and what to do to make it even and flexible. So when playing tremolo, we have to remember that it is a quadruplet, even though that's very obvious, but sometimes people forget that it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, because the tremolo part of it, the three notes, is so dominant. So it is a quadruplet, and to make it very smooth and continuous, we have to treat it as a constant loop. So it's not just one thing, it is within its continuation and attached to the next repetition. So when playing it, it's important that mechanically we are aware of it and do it the right way. So when I'm playing it really slowly, or even slower, you will notice that when I come to the I, my A finger is already out and ready to play in the next repetition. So as I'm here, my A finger doesn't remain closed, so I don't do this. Because then you're actually wasting time in between. So what you do is, as I is playing, A is coming out to be ready to play again. It's not just I, it's actually M and I. While M and I are playing, the A is already relaxing and going back. So and the same thing happens in the other direction. So when I is playing, A is coming out, but when A is playing, I is coming out. So this way, if you kind of treat it as a grouping of fours and don't connect them to each other, no matter how fast you do it, there's almost this minute break in between the quadruplets that groups it and doesn't make it sound like one continuous loop. But if you treat it as a loop, then there is no break in between, and the tremolo actually sounds more legato. And the same thing applies to the thumb. So when I'm coming down, and I chose this very simple kind of theme from a malagueña, just so that I can demonstrate the sound, the right hand. When I'm playing at the second string, I don't wait until I finish the tremolo to come back to the bass. So what happens is, as I'm playing the tremolo, my thumb is traveling up. So and you'll notice I play tremolo with a rest stroke. It doesn't really matter whether you do a free stroke or rest stroke. Either way, when you come back a longer distance, it needs to happen while you're playing the tremolo and not after you finish it. Because no matter how fast you are getting back to the note, there is not that much time left once you finish the quadruplet, the group. So when practicing it really slowly, you might kind of forget about it because it's so slow. You could just, you can do this and not thinking ahead, and you can still manage. But once it gets faster, then it's going to be impossible to come back to the notes quickly enough to make it sound completely continuous. So even when practicing slow, I would recommend watching your right hand and being aware of what your fingers are doing after they play, even if there's time between the time they have to play again. The other thing to watch out for is how much your fingers are moving. You always want to move from the knuckle joint, and then you finish the movement with the middle joint. But you don't want to be moving too much out, because on a first string you'll get away with it since there is nothing below it. But once you need to play a tremolo note on one of the middle strings, so for example here, if you're moving too much outwards, you're going to start hitting, you're going to be hitting the first string. So your movements need to be a little more concise to make sure that you stay clear of the string that's above it. A lot of times it's actually the outside of the nail that ends up touching the first string. So you're not actually double stroking it. It's when you come back, the outside of the nail ends up touching the first string, and that creates the kind of noisy, buzzy sound. So be careful when playing on the second string that your movements aren't too much outwards. And if I slow down, so those two things, if you keep in mind, thinking ahead and not thinking in groups of four, being aware that it's a quadruplet but not thinking of them in groups and more of a constant circular loop, that will help to make the tremolo sound more smoother. The next step is to practice it and develop the physical dexterity to make it completely your own and have complete control over the evenness, the volume, and have flexibility. So when playing the tremolo, you don't want to just, if you're slowing down, your tremolo has to slow down with the bass. So that way, if I'm playing, of course you wouldn't do that, but if you wanted to, whatever the bass decides to the tempo be, the tremolo speed has to follow. In the next video, in part 2 of this video, I'll talk about the different ways to practice tremolo, because unfortunately just practicing the pattern won't give you the same results. There are a lot of different things, different patterns that you should do to develop the dexterity for it.